Welcome to the Personal Podcast, where we meet the real person behind the professional. Today, we're talking to Michael O'Connor, who's Director of Venture Properties. So, Michael, do you believe in an afterlife?
I suppose I'd have to say to that that I don't.
Okay.
That I don't actually believe in an afterlife. No, although I've had some weird experiences, I think that the answer would have to be no.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So you mentioned weird experiences.
Yeah.
What sort of weird experiences?
So the strangest experience that I had relates to an incident about in the 90s, I think it was. And at the time I was working as a policeman. And we'd gone to a house and it was for a missing from home inquiry. And it was the first job that we got on this night shift. So we got to this house. There was me and my partner, crewmate, and we went into the house. It was owned by a couple, and they lived there with their son. And when we went to the door, the lady of the house answered the door, and she had a friend with her, similar age. And we went in and we did what we needed to do in relation to the inquiry. Asked a few questions to see if there'd been any updates, all that sort of thing. And then the strangest thing happened, because as we were talking, I'll just quickly describe the room. So we were in the living room, and it was a big house, and there was a fire on the right-hand side. There was two settees set up that were facing each other with a coffee table in the middle, and the fire was on the right where I was sitting, and then there was a single chair facing the fire. So it's that sort of arrangement.
Okay,
if
yeah.
if you can visualise that. So me and my crewmate, I was sat on the one sofa on my own, and my crewmate was sat on the chair facing the fire, and this lady and a friend were sat in the opposite us.
Okay,
And
yeah.
we were chatting away, and obviously there was space behind us. And then as we were talking, I suddenly thought to myself, this feels absolutely the most peculiar thing. And it was directly behind me. It felt like somebody had opened a freezer door. And it just the temperature right immediately behind me just dropped through the floor. But it only felt like it was only a certain space. It wasn't everything behind me. So it was peculiar. And I thought to myself, what's happened there? Bearing in mind what we were discussing. And then the lady whose house it was obviously clocked my expression and said, "Are you all right?" And I said, explained to her what happened, and she said, "Oh, that'll be the ghost." And I thought, "All right, okay, it's one of these, the ghost, right? Okay." So, I, as this was going on, nothing happened. It sort of passed, if for want of a better word, and everything was okay, and there was no problems. And then I watched my crewmate, and I saw the expression on his face, and it was exactly the same expression. So I said to him, "Can you feel anything?" And he said, "Oh, no, nothing." That's what he said. And then a friend who she was sat next to on the sofa said, "Oh, it's behind me now. I can feel it. It's gone behind me." So we started talking about this presence, if you like. And the lady who owned the house said, "Well, what will probably happen is in the next sort of half an hour, usually, things start moving in the room. You know, we've seen things get dropped off the mantelpiece and stuff get thrown about." So I'm thinking, this is really taking a bizarre turn. And I thought, right, okay, trying to get my head around what was going on, and sort of bracing myself for anything to happen. And when this happened, I mean, as the story moved on, this was in a period of about 2 or 3 minutes. I could feel it come back behind me again, and I've never experienced cold like it. So I'm looking around, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Couldn't see anything. I didn't feel scared. It was just this coldness, and she proceeded to tell me the property had a ghost and all these experiences that she'd had. And she'd said that she'd been in the kitchen where cutlery had been thrown around, cups had been dropped, keys had gone missing, this type of activity. And she said one time, and this is going to sound really weird, and this is all hearsay, of course, so I don't know whether this happened or not, but she told me one time, she'd gone out with a husband when the boy was small, and they had a babysitter, and the babysitter had rang up hysterically. They'd rang the restaurant because it was back in the 80s, pre-mobile phones. Rang the restaurant where they were, and had said, "You've got to come home." So they rushed back home, and they said that she'd heard this noise upstairs, gone upstairs, and there was quite a long landing. And she said, when I got to the top of the landing, I looked down the landing, and I could see a light. And she said it was like a ball. And so all this backstory's going on, and I'm thinking this is ridiculous. There was other stories as well that were. I mean, I could go on. She told me a number of things that happened, but they were all that type of thing. And then as we were sat there, experiencing this call coming and going, I heard this with my own ears. I heard the stairs were just by the side of the room that we were in. So they ran up the wall of the room that we were in, if you see what I mean. Mm. So if you went out the room and turned immediate right, you go up the stairs.
Yeah.
And there was just somebody came into the house. I didn't hear them come in, but I heard them go from the bottom of the stairs all the way to the top. And it was literally like that. You could, running at that sort of pace. No mistaking it. All the way to the top. And I thought, my mind's going 50 to the dozen, and I'm thinking, it's the lad that's come back. He's just come in the house and he's come back. So we went upstairs, searched the whole house, nothing there. And it was just the queerest thing that I can't explain. But I didn't see anything, and I didn't feel spooked or anything like that, but it was just one of those unexplained things.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're giving me goosebumps.
Yeah, it is one of those stories, yeah.
Yeah, wow. And so have you ever made contact with the dead?
Well, I'm going to sound like some sort of
Ghostbuster.
yeah, something like that. Back many years ago when I was at college, so we're in the 80s now, we were all a little bit obsessed with this. We got our driving licenses at 17, and we were all a little bit obsessed with doing this sort of thing. We actually got into, for a period of time, which was a stupid thing to do, but kids are kids, we started doing Ouija boards, and we did it in my mate's loft. He had an attic, it was done out, it was great, went up there, and we just made this Ouija board, and we started doing these things, whatever you would describe them, and whatever it was that we did make contact with, it was the strangest thing, because I'm sure everyone knows what a Ouija board is, but we had a glass tumbler and everybody sat round this circle in this table, and there's about 6 of us, I think, touching the tumbler. And when I'm saying touching, you literally are touching it. It's a light touch, and if somebody sort of touches it with any sort of force, you can tell in the finger. So it's really light touch. And we did this for a number of occasions, and sometimes the glass would move and it would go like really quickly round the table. I mean, what the hell we were doing, I don't know, but there you go. That's kids. And one of the things that we did, because there was a lot of these instances, but the strangest one was a friend of mine had said, right, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all these pieces of paper out. They were all exactly the same size, and he drew diagrams on them. So it would be like, for example, a Christmas tree, a football, a house, a dog, a flower, random stuff. Yeah. And he didn't touch he wasn't touching the glass. He was nowhere near it. And he folded them all up. You couldn't see through them, and he put them out in a line on the table. And whoever whatever was going on, we instructed whoever, to go to the cat. And there was about 12, and it went boof, turned it over, it was the cat, boof, the football, boof, the flag. It got every single one right twice.
Oh, goodness.
And what are the odds of that?
Yeah.
Every single one.
Were you all touching the glass still with a finger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were all touching the glass.
But you didn't know which ones?
We hadn't a clue, because we weren't in the room when he did it. And you couldn't see. I'm saying it was paper. He'd written it on card. You couldn't see what it was. And then we thought, somebody's pushing a glass. That's what you obviously think.
Yeah.
And so we did it again, and 24 out of 24, it was right. So that was, that's another weird thing. So I think in answer to the original question, there's so much stuff we don't know that you just Who knows?
Absolutely, because we have these 5 senses, don't we?
Yeah.
I think there's loads of other things transmitting information that we just can't receive, perhaps.
Yeah.
You know, they do talk about a 6th sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really creeps me out. I don't think I'd ever do a Ouija board. Would you do one now?
No, I don't think I would. I mean, we've had instances in our office at work where, I mean, I not from me, but other people have mentioned things that have gone on there. A decorator one night was working at 3 a.m, because it used to be a hostel, our office at Darlington.
Right.
It was when unmarried mothers used to have their children taken off them and put in there. So it's got a bit of a weird history, I suppose.
Yeah.
And we had a decorator working a night shift in there, and he said he could hear talking and all. So it's been suggested, why don't we do one? I said, absolutely no chance. Not now. I think it was a thing that you did when you were, well, we did. We got so into that sort of thing, ghost hunting and all. We were 17. You know, so you kind of grow out of it, I think, don't you?
Yeah, or get scared out of you.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have problems sleeping at night or from all these ghost experiences? No.
I mean, I honestly don't know how I would characterise them. There were just strange instances. I mean, I am quite sceptical, which is bizarre.
I know, it makes me believe them more.
I'm not a believer necessarily. You see, I think there's an awful lot goes on in your mind.
Yes.
And I don't know how much of that comes across with sort of energy in the room. I mean, you know, they say that there's so much of the human brain that they don't know anything about.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that we just don't know, and I don't know whether there could be some sort of involvement in relation to that that people just take to be. Because there's no explanation. They think, oh, well, it must be the afterlife or something like that, and I don't necessarily buy into that. I just think it's a strange phenomenon rather than anything else.
How do you try and explain it to yourself then, that whole Ouija board experience?
Well, I don't really often think about it now. I mean, there was some of it, there was some stuff that, I mean, I'm talking about this as though we did it a lot, but we probably didn't. We probably did it. It was only probably over the course of a few weeks, this. But there was some of the stuff that we were told that would happen that didn't happen. For example.
Okay.
So it's a bit like one of those situations where you think, oh, well, you know, I can't remember what the term is, but there's a psychology term for it where you're the way that you think about something is then found it to be true if you believe in it. So I can't remember what it's called. But I don't know. I don't know whether you think about the things that maybe have a bit of truth and then you forget about all the ones that have none.
Like take what you want from it. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy sort of thing.
Exactly.
Well, what happens when you die then, do you think?
Oh, that is $1 million question, isn't it? That is a really deep one. I mean, I'm not sure. I think it depends the way you look at it. I mean, I look at the way that we are here, quite insignificant. I mean, I saw a video recently from Professor Brian Cox about the universe, and I thought, that's incredible. And it was about the camera, the Hubble telescope that's orbiting the Earth.
Yeah.
And I always thought this puts things into perspective, because he said that it was going around the Earth and it focused on this little bit of sky that was dark, really dark, and it was about the size of a 5p piece. If you held the 5p piece 25 metres away from it, it's a tiny.
Yeah.
And it photographed it loads and loads of times because it wanted to see if there was anything there. And inside there was 10,000 lights. And in those 10,000 lights, they thought, they're just stars. But when they looked at them, they weren't stars. They were actually universes. So in one of those 10,000 universes, there's 100,000 million stars like our sun.
Yeah.
And I just think, when you look at that, and you just think, my God, that is just like ridiculously. You just can't
crazy.
comprehend
Yeah,
it.
you can't. Our
can't,
small, tiny little brains, they're insignificant. They can't even compute it.
Exactly. So you think, when you look at something like that and what we're learning now, I think, well, we are probably just little insignificant people, but that our egos tell us that we've got this important role to play, but probably we're quite insignificant. But then the flip side of that is, of course, that people could argue that when all that's going on, that we didn't know. I mean, this is a recent finding, so 10 years ago we didn't know this. What else could be going on that we just don't know. So it's a one of those, isn't it? It's a one of those. What happens when we die? I think personally, if I was pushed on it, I'd probably think, well, I think that's it. I don't think it's just like before you were born.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's what I would say, but then you look at those two sides of the coin and you think...
I know, and I'm in two minds because we're looking at these wondrous stars, but we're made of stardust.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And it's... Yeah, and then what happens when we die sort of thing, and before we were born... So I haven't seen you in so long, so since I've had my daughters, one of them, since about 2, used to tell me about a previous life.
Oh, man.
I know. And I don't even like talking about it because it creeps me out so much. But one of her earliest phrases was it, stop, cars on the road. She'd always shout that to us when we were driving, we were pulling out at a junction. We're like, well, we know we're on a road, sweetheart. But it was just so clear. And she used to tell us that she was in a car accident. She ran out onto the road and got squashed when she was with another mummy, is what she would used to say to me. I was like, yeah. So now, and then we thought maybe she was an animal, because one time I was telling my parents what happened and what she said. And she was like, Mummy, it was a really long time ago. It happened on the Tuesday. I was put down on the Wednesday. This came out of I think she maybe had just turned 3 at that point. And I was like, what do you even mean by put down? Like,
I mean, that's using language that...
Yeah, that I wouldn't, unless she'd heard me, like, because, some of my family, again, they're quite sceptical. Well, she must have heard you say that. But I don't know, it was very, very strange. So, yeah. Yeah,
well, I've heard those stories before. There was a documentary on Netflix and I saw it, and it was focusing on that. And it was all these kids, and they were all children. And it was focusing on what they could do and what they could say. I mean, there was one boy, I can't remember how old he was, but he was about, say, 7, 8, and he could describe the workings of a fighter jet.
Yeah.
I'm saying fighter jet. It's obviously not a fighter jet because it's World War II.
I know what you mean.
You know, the cockpit, what all the mechanics of the cockpit could do. And then there was another girl who was convinced that she was in this French, I think it was there must have been the French royal family if I remember, but it was a very well-to-do French family, and they did some research on her story, and they thought, there's nothing backing it up, and when they did a bit more digging, they found out that this family did exist, but it was really difficult to get hold of, and this was a 10-year-old girl, so it's like.
So, it's things like that make me question even more. But I love it when there's evidence to back it up. When someone said, I remember reading this story where this young boy said, looked at a photo. They were going through photo albums and they came to his granddad and he was like, that's the guy that sits on my bed every night. Yeah. And the parents are just like, oh my goodness, that's your granddad. He died before you were born. How do you even know this? And so I don't know. Again, I don't know if it just brings me comfort to think that. And it's, again, the power of the mind playing tricks on you. But it's certainly fascinating.
It is, because you can look at it from both ways. I mean, he could have seen a photograph, couldn't he?
Yeah.
And just his conscious mind is bringing it back to the forefront.
Yeah, or dreaming.
Yeah, there's so many different things. I've heard so many stories about people where, particularly with relatives that have died, shortly after they've died, they've seen them. I know it's happened to people that I know. But then I think, but it probably would, because you're probably still grieving.
Yeah.
You know, so that there's a chance that it's just your mind. And the other thing I've always thought, Charlotte, is why are most ghost stories at night?
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is it at night?
Yeah.
I stayed overnight in this house, and during the night, this is what happened. You don't really get that many that are during the day, if you think about it.
I do think about this, and I question it, because I am the sort of person that is kept up at night by a scary ghost story or anything that I've seen, so I probably won't sleep well tonight, thanks. But it's just, but then I do question, but why, I wouldn't be this scared in the middle of the day, but then I don't know if it's that sense that we can't perceive, and I think light and different light sources, orbs in photography and things like that as well. And again, it could be a speck of dust, but I just think there's more, it's easier to transmit light or whatever it is. I don't know, yeah. I maybe need to look into it.
It's one of those, isn't it? We'll never know. We'll never know the answer one way or the other. And
we might do when we die for a little bit. Because, again, like the young children seem to remember, and as you get older, then you forget, or you're programmed to, or I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe. It's, it's just one of those head scratches, isn't it?
I know, but it does fascinate me.
It's
though.
fascinating. That's what makes it fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. Because if we had all
knows.
the answers, then it might be boring. Maybe in a few 30 or 40 years, we know the science behind it. It's like, yeah, it's fine. It's just a ghost behind me sort of thing.
Yeah, we know. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's crazy. So kind of on that kind of stream of thought, what do you think the purpose of life is? Like, why are we here?
Oh, the purpose of life. These are deep, these.
No, sorry.
I think you might have the wrong guest.
Not at all.
No,
Not at all.
I'm kidding. So the purpose of life, I look at it and think, for me, I look at, and it's a personal thing, because I think a lot of people are religious, and they look at religion as a gateway for trying to find the answer to that. And I've been looking at a thing called Stoicism lately.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you know about that, don't you?
Yeah, I love a bit of that.
A book, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's brilliant, because it dates back from, I think it's 3 BC, is it? The 3rd century BC?
Yeah, I don't know the exact date,
I think
but
it is.
ages.
A long time
Yeah.
before Buddhism, well before Buddhism, I think. And when you look at that, I think, they're pillars of the way that they look at things. I think, well, that's a good way to live your life. What the meaning of it is, I don't know. I think it's just try to do I think we've all lost our way with the meaning of life, to be honest with you, at the moment, don't you, with the way that everything's going?
Yep.
I don't think religion's the answer. I think a lot of people are caught up in religion, and I don't think that's the answer. I think it causes more problems than it solves, personally. But I think with Stoicism, if you look at the way that they live their life, they look at situations and they think, don't let the situation have any impact on you, because you can't control it. It's an outside factor. It's how you perceive and deal with that situation. And they have these ways of helping you do it with, I think there's using wisdom and justice, and I think there's 4: wisdom, justice, courage, and judging one of those things is if you use that, you'll lead a good life, really, and that's the way I look at it, and I think that's all you've got to do, and the meaning of it really is just to carry on creating.
Yeah.
Keep the species going. That's my simple answer to that, really. Yeah. And while you're here, do what you can.
Yeah, definitely, because there's so many things that you can't control what happens to you, but you can control your reaction to it. And I think that's a lot of
the top and bottom of it.
Yeah, and it's that whole thing. There is no truth. There's only perception.
Yeah.
And it is very interesting. I wouldn't describe myself as religious either. Spiritual. I like to believe in something. But yeah, I think it's maybe for me, it's to get the most out of life, whether it's to fulfill potential, be the best version of yourself that you can be. But I don't know, really.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think a lot of people have lost the way on those principles, and that's why I brought up the Stoics, because I think if everyone looks at the way that they live their life and how you deal with things, I think you could just, it would be a lot better than it is at the moment, I think.
What disheartens you about the way people are today?
I think everybody wants quick fixes. I think everybody wants an awful lot more than they used to want. I don't think people are as resilient as they used to be.
Yeah.
They're the main 3 things, I think, that I find when I look around. I think you've got megalomaniacs that are running the world. We get the wrong people. I think that
just
pretty
those
much
minor items.
Just those minor things, yeah.
Yeah, it's that instant gratification, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people. They're all searching for something that they're never going to get, and they're never happy because they're never going to get what they're searching for. So it just goes round and round in a circle. And I think a lot of people they either want to be famous, or they want to make a lot of money, or it's all sort of material things, I think. And I don't know whether it was ever like that before. I don't remember it being like that when I was a kid, necessarily. But I think there's a lot of things going on now where it's in people's faces that, with social media. Yeah. Everybody puts the perfect life on social media, but it's anything but the perfect life.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's all people see, and that kind of oils the wheels, I think, of this needing and this desire to to get things and
Yeah.
quick fixes and
Yeah. It seems like hard work is an old-fashioned thing these days.
Yeah. And at the same time, I think, as a young person now, I think, it must be really difficult. It must be really difficult trying to navigate your way through all of that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed you've come off a lot of social media. Was that a conscious choice? You don't like the way it's going?
Yeah, I've come off all of it. For that reason. I find that I always thought that when I was on it, particularly Twitter, you used to look at it and you used to just think, you'd come off it after, say, 20 minutes and you'd just feel 10 times worse than you did before you went on it. And then gradually, I suddenly thought, well, what am I doing? What am I doing this for? I'm just making myself miserable. And I just came off it, and I've never once thought to myself, oh, I missed that. Never.
It's interesting. I use it less and less personally, but more and more business.
Yeah.
Businessly, that's not even a word, but businessly.
I think,
New word now.
Well, I think you've got to use it like that, though, haven't you? Because people. I mean, I know restaurants now that you can't even ring them. You've got to book online through Facebook. What that's all about, I don't know, but that's what you've got to do. You've got to do it on Instagram or Facebook. You can't ring anyone. You can't talk to anyone. You've got to do it through those. So businessly, you've got to have a presence, I think.
Yeah.
And that's because it's sort of forced on you. So we have one too, but I just don't bother, because I find Instagram on the flip side of that is everybody's perfect life's on Instagram, and I don't think it's helping anyone.
No.
People are just kidding themselves. That's the first thing, and the second thing, everybody else looks at it and thinks, well, I need a bit of a holiday in Dubai on the beach, and it's probably the first time they've been to Dubai in their lives, and they're 40.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you that.
Yeah, I know.
You've saved up for years. But
I know. I do make a conscious effort on my personal one to say highlights of my life. It's just, and to be honest, I put lowlights on as well, because I think it's important to balance it.
And the sad thing about it is, there is some really good people on there, really good people. So a lot of people will have the dilemma is, do I go on it to see the people that I like?
Yeah.
And that can give me information and make me and help me grow as a person in other ways, because there's plenty of those on, particularly on Instagram, and just take the rest of it through gritted teeth. I don't know, because I suppose you can control it, but then the ads come on, don't they? And so how much of it can you control, really? Yeah,
I think it's about discipline. It's making sure that you're controlling it rather than the other way around. And for me, it became an addiction, constantly scrolling, looking for things, looking at likes and everything like that. So once, I don't like anything having a hold of me, like even caffeine, for example. So when I noticed that, I was like, right, it's time to start stepping back a little bit from it.
Yeah.
But it's scary stuff. And I read something the other day where it's interesting how Facebook calls its customers users, because it is a drug.
There's a brilliant, there's a brilliant documentary called The Social Dilemma.
Yes.
And if anyone wants to watch anything about social media, watch that. I think, is it on Netflix? I can't remember.
I think so, yeah.
It's really good. It's all their ex-chief executives that have basically said this is just going beyond the pale with
they don't let their kids on it.
Algorithms and all of this. Yeah, really interesting.
It is. Yeah, I think, again, we won't see the kind of effects of it until years to come. But, it's not healthy. Like anything in excess isn't healthy, but yeah. So, taking it back to your career as a police officer, do you look fondly upon that time?
I do, to a degree, yeah, because I think I did it for about 16 years, I think, and it was my first real job, because I was 19 when I joined. And I suppose the way I look at it is it's bittersweet. It helped me form the person I am, for sure, because when you're sort of 19 and you're doing that job...
So young, really, isn't it?
You learn so much. I mean, you really sort of learn about life. And
sorry to interrupt, but just a quick word about our sponsor, Be Daily. I've been subscribing to the Be Daily now since starting my business. It provides relevant and informative information directly to my inbox, not just about the North East, but also national news. If you're interested in subscribing, we'll put the link in the description box so you can get the business news directly to your inbox. Now back to the podcast.
You grow, you sort of get a bit more, you get experience before your time, and you get experience life. And so from that side of things, I don't think I would be the same person if I hadn't have experienced that. The camaraderie was brilliant. But then the other side of it was, it's just, I think it was going in a very strange direction then, and that'll have been 2007, I think. And now it's probably 10 times worse now. And what I mean by that is, it lost its identity, the police, I think. I think it still has lost its identity. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to portray themselves. They don't know whether they're a service or a force, for example. Because some are called police services, some are called police forces.
Right.
It just depends on who's in charge, I think. They don't know whether to crack down on minor crime or not crack down on it. They don't know whether to stop protests or let them carry on. I could go on and on and on. And I think there's a massive problem with the identity in the police force.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got some friends that are currently in training to become a police officer. So they're just very start of it. And yeah, it's an interesting time, like it is for a lot of things, you know, and what it's going to become. And obviously we're in the business of identity and perception and relationships and everything like that. It's, yeah, what do you think, what would you recommend that it does for its identity?
Well, I think it should stop trying to please everybody, because it's trying to be one thing for everybody, and nothing can do that. I mean, I don't even think any business can do that.
No.
You know, you've got to have an identity and some values, and you've got to stick to those. But when they get criticised, they try to make it better, when really they should be just saying, actually, no, that's what we're here to do. And now, because they've bent to a degree over things like that, now it's got to the stage where whenever there's a bit of criticism, they feel as though they've got to apologise. I've seen it so many times. I've seen these programmes on the TV. I mean, it might be for the cameras, but they're dealing with these criminals and calling them mate. I don't know what that's all about, really, but it never used to happen. You know, it's almost like, oh, we've just got to do this, but I don't know. It's sort of waned its way down to the front line police now, I think. They don't want to get involved in anything. And I'm not critical, I'm very pro-police, but I think it's just, I've seen it go that way from about 2008, and then when you get a prosecution, you've got to get it through the CPS now, which you didn't ever used to have to do, and the CPS will only ever put through the cases that they've got a very good chance of prosecuting, where there's always a dilemma there, because, not prosecuting, sorry, a very good chance of winning. The dilemma is that, well, you're making decisions that surely a court or a jury should make a decision on, but you're doing it.
Yeah.
And so there's this grey area.
Yeah.
But it's all about saving money, you see. So,
yeah, it's hard.
It's very difficult. I mean, I wouldn't want to have to decide on that particular point, but I think something needs to be done. Yeah,
interesting. And when you were in the police, what was the worst situation you had to deal with?
I don't think there was any one particular one. There was an awful lot of really bad ones. I mean, I worked on a few murder inquiries that were very unpleasant. I think you get really involved. You know, you take it personally. I don't think that ever really comes across when you're actually doing it to the general public, I think. Those type of things. But everything I dealt with, you just tend to deal with nice people when they're victims of crime, unfortunately. So you do see a lot of that side of life, and you don't see much of the other side. I don't say there's one particular thing, but, you know, suicides, terrible road accidents, there was just one thing after another, really.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah, it was quite a lot, yeah.
Oh, was there ever any really good situations where you really felt like you were making a difference? Again, probably many.
Definitely, yeah. There was definitely those side of things. We had a spate of robberies that were going on where elderly ladies were targeted, and they were always on their own, and they always used to get their bags, and they didn't care what happened to them. So many of them got broken hips, broken legs. I mean, some of them were really seriously injured. Some of them died shortly after, you know. And we cleared up a lot of that because we identified areas of where that was happening, and we got the people that were
good.
doing it and got them off the streets, and that made a big difference, because I always remember there was a lady's, one of the old lady's sons had wrote a really lovely letter in, you know, and I kept that for years, and then I don't know what happened to it in the end when I left. I don't really know what happened to it, and I always remember that, and it certainly wasn't the worst things that I dealt with, but it was probably one of those things that I got a lot of pleasure out of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's nice. And you mentioned when you left, like, what was there a final straw, or was it just the general?
Yeah,
there was.
There was a final. There was a. It just got to the stage where I absolutely hated what I was doing. You know, I'd gone from really loving it for a number of years. I loved it, and by the end of it, I absolutely hated it. And I just thought the carrot you see with the police is always the pension, because it's always deemed a good pension. So I was working out, well, in 30 years I'll be 49, and of course at the time I'm 30 something. And you have those moments in your life and you think, what am I doing here? I'm actually wishing my life away.
Yeah.
Thinking, oh, well, I'll be retired at 49, but I've not thinking, well, you've got all this to put up with. So something happened at work. I wasn't happy at all about it. And then that was the final straw. And it was typical of the police at the time. You know, the senior management were trying to keep themselves looking as good as they possibly could. And that was it. I thought, I'm going to go and do something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you faced any really tough challenges in your life? I'm sure you have. Of them all, what was the biggest?
I think starting the business was probably the hardest thing I did at the time, because I had I hadn't really got any experience of business apart from when I was much younger. I've always sort of in the back of my mind wanted to run a business, and I thought I'd give it a try. That's probably the hardest thing I ever did, because we opened because we do property, and we had 2 years, and then from 2006 to 2008, and then in 2008 the market crashed, and it was the worst time in the world, and nobody in the right mind was opening a business in property in 2008. They were mainly closing. But, you know, sort of anger, I think certainly anger can be a fantastic motivator.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that is something that I had, and that pushed us on, really. So that was probably the hardest thing.
Oh, definitely. Well, we can't dig any more
into
that.
No, we don't want to go into that.
Business being banned from this chat. Have you got anyone in your life who's your rock, who helps you through difficult situations?
I think at various times in my life I've had different people, I think. Somebody that you can rely on, that your advice that you really sort of take on board. And at different stages I've had different people to do that. My dad, my mum, they were a phenomenal help when I was going through all of that situation when I left the police. My dad helped me massively when I started the business, because obviously, as you know, you have no money.
Yes.
We won't talk about that, but he helped me. And then my wife has been going through the real start-up of it and other things in life. She's been a massive support. Sounding board, advice. You know, people that, and I've got friends as well that are that I would speak to about things like that. That I take on board a lot of things.
Lovely.
From them, yeah.
Do you believe in a soulmate?
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, I think I do believe in a soulmate. I think it's a difficult thing to nail down, really. I think a soulmate. Would you think so, or do you find it easy?
No, I think it's difficult as well.
Yeah.
You know, define a soul in the first instance.
Yeah.
It's easier to define a mate, I guess.
Yeah.
But then, the word soul. Do you believe in the soul?
Do I believe in the soul? I don't think I do.
No.
I don't think I do.
I do.
Do you?
But I couldn't explain why. It's just kind of something that I've
grown... What do you think it is?
So I think it's almost the psychological element to yourself. Take the hardware, and then you could argue that it's the hardware that creates the personality, the psychology of you. But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like you're born with this kind of physical hardware, and then there's something unexplained.
I think that's a good way of explaining it, yeah. I haven't looked at it like that before.
Yeah, because, you could have the same sort of genetics and
Yeah.
physical features, but then you could be totally different. And I know you could argue it's slightly different genetics that you're getting, but I just think, I don't know, again, maybe it's something that brings me comfort, but just some sort of spiritual being almost inside. Then I think if there is such a thing of reincarnation, it's that bit that transfers. And again, it's something that can't be perceived by any of our senses. But yeah, I don't know. I still struggle to figure things out in my mind. I just come up with different ideas all the time.
Yeah, I know what you mean by all of that. I've off your explanation, I can see where you're coming from. It is there's sort of like something inside that you think, well, yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
So looking at it from what you've said, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So maybe the soulmate is almost like different kind of elements of, personalities that just really match together. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And just like someone, I guess, in the practicalities of it, someone you can have deeper conversations with. Like, I suppose it doesn't always have to be your partner. It could be like friends or family members. But yeah, would you say your wife's your soulmate?
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah.
I would say I do a lot of that internally as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because Rachel, my wife's very, very pragmatic, and I'm more sort of like I do look on that side of things a little bit more, and I think that I look at, for example, meditation and stuff like that. I'm quite into that.
Yeah.
And I know when I haven't done it, I always feel a bit not quite right, and I've been doing that for about 2 or 3 years, and I think that's a way of sort of reflection. I think a little bit sometimes,
Definitely.
just stillness and.
Yeah. How do you feel when you have and haven't done it?
I feel a little bit more as though I'm in a different gear. And
Higher or lower?
Higher. I don't want to be in that higher gear sometimes.
When you haven't done it?
When I haven't done it,
That's interesting. Yeah. It's something that I've always wanted to get into, and I always try, and I've really struggled, but I think it's because I need to do it so much that I struggle, if that makes any sense.
I think everybody goes through that, and me included. Me included, absolutely. I think sometimes some mornings it works, it's easy. Some mornings I just can't get into it at all. And I think a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves with it because they think that this magical thing's going to happen.
Yeah.
And really all it is it's practice, really. You just do it, even if you do the same thing over the course of 3 weeks every day for 10 minutes a day. Eventually you'll think, actually there's something I can't quite put my finger on that calms everything, and you just feel a bit better during the day. And then breathing exercises are the other thing that works really well.
Yeah, I've done a bit of that lately, and actually I found it really hard to breathe.
Yeah.
That sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But when you're doing all these special, holding it for a certain amount of time, breathing out, or in through one nostril and out through the mouth. And then my back was aching afterwards, and it just shows how badly I breathe throughout the day. And
well, most people, what you're supposed to do is breathe through your nose, and how many people breathe through the nose? Nobody. Everyone breathes through their mouth.
Yeah.
And then they're exercising and they're all, panting. It's because they're breathing through their mouth, and the body's reacting to that. Whereas if you breathe through your nose, I've just learned this, by the way. I've read a book on it.
I've read a book on it as well. Was it the James Nestor one?
It was.
Yes, I read that one.
Breath, yeah.
Yeah, I try.
Breathe, sorry,
I try and breathe through my nose now when I'm working. It's so hard.
It's so hard.
But it's talking about how it affects the whole shape of your face and everything, and
your mouth.
Your orthodont. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything. And I've found that when I've been trying to be, I only do sort of a little bit of it in a day. He says, just if you're watching telly or driving in the car, just do it and try and get your breaths down. I think it's about 8 a minute, 9 a minute, where everyone's doing 16. And you can imagine, if you're doing 16, if you imagine it like a car engine, you're always sort of like that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you slow your breathing down, I think that helps as well if you can't get into meditation.
Yeah, I definitely need to get better at it. I think we could all do with just improving the simple things, the things that you take for granted as well, just to slow down a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
Back to, we're not going to talk about business, but obviously you're in the property industry. I want to know, what's the strangest thing you found in someone's house?
Strangest thing I've found in someone's house. Nothing particularly, as in items. I've seen some strange things in people's houses.
Well, that might be even better.
Yeah, I've had... I know that we did a property inspection once, and there was no answer at the door. And then I heard a shout saying, "Oh, come in, let yourself in." And So we went in and, I'm just up here. So I went upstairs and there he is in bed with two women.
Clearly wanted
there
you
go.
to see.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
proud,
he clearly did want to
proud
see.
person.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's stories where we've gone in and we've been told that, for example, I'll go in with keys and it'll be fine, and then you go in and there's somebody in the house, even though you've been told to go in with keys in the bath. Oh, that's been one. But nothing sort of nothing item wise.
No. Oh, that's a shame.
No, no, sorry.
I was hoping for some juicy content.
Yeah, I think everybody tidies up.
Yeah. Oh, I was hoping they did. Is it true? I've heard often that people have really immaculate downstairs and then upstairs is just horrendous.
Yeah, that can be true. Yeah, that can be true. I think also families have loads of toys for kids.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. Yeah, like toys everywhere.
Awful.
So that's the other thing. You walk into a conservatory and it's just toys all over the floor.
How to devalue a property instantly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I always used to say if you've got nowhere to put them, just put them in the shed.
Yeah.
Or put them in the car while there's a viewing on. Something like that. Get them out of the way.
Yeah, they're not the most
Yeah,
attractive.
they're the sort of the real sort of bugbear of estate agents, I think.
Okay. Well, I'll note that for the future. So I've got a couple of dilemmas for you. Would you rather have a small house and the best car in the world, or the best house in the world and a small car?
Best house in the world and a small car.
Okay. Why?
Because the best house in the world is always going to go up in value. A car is always going to decrease in value.
Very sensible
And
answer.
you spend more time in a house than you do in a car. Well, most people do.
Yeah, excellent. And another dilemma, providing the house is of the same value, is it best to live in the best house on the worst street or the worst house on the best street?
The best house on the worst street.
Okay.
No, sorry, what were the two questions again?
Best house on the worst street or worst house on the best street?
The worst house on the best street. I think I said it the other way around.
Yeah, it's hard to get your head around.
Yeah. I meant the worst house on the best street.
Okay, right.
Yeah. Location.
Yeah, location.
Yeah, always best, yeah.
I suppose it might be a little bit nicer, safer, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Well, those are the main reasons, really. Yeah, you'll always... Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, cool. Just wondered.
Value.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where is your happy place?
Probably inside my head. That's probably where it is. I think it comes from within, and I think I can be anywhere, and I can be in a bad mood, and I can be anywhere, and be in a good mood. So it's quite a deep answer, but
No, it's just so right though.
yeah, I think it's just inside me. It goes back to what we were saying before. I think you can control how you think about things, and that's what you've got to try and do. It's not as easy as it sounds, but that's what you've got to try and do.
Yeah.
But physically, I mean, if you're talking about a physical place, I like to go to Northumberland, on the coast up there,
Lovely.
because I think you can
It's
go
nice.
an hour and a half up the road and you feel as though you're on another. Just everything's a bit calmer. There's a lot of places that don't have phone signals.
Brilliant.
It's sort of an escape, and it's not too far away to go.
Yeah, lovely. And would you say you're happy at the minute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I'm happy, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I'm happy.
Fantastic. Another thing that might make you happy are dogs.
Yeah, dogs.
What impact have dogs had on your life?
Oh, massive impact. I think dogs are just heroes. I absolutely love dogs for so many different reasons. On my life, I've had 5 dogs. They're just fantastic companions. They give you so much love, affection,
Unconditionally. Yeah.
I mean, we've always had rescue
Yes.
dogs, and the rescue dogs, some of them have had some horrendous lives. And I find it amazing that you can take them on and show them a bit of kindness, but they've got they don't look at you as a human that's done horrible things, and it just resets the record, and I think that's amazing. So yeah, there's loads of different things. It's got me, I go out walking them, the bond. Yeah, so many things.
Yeah, and I've had rescue dogs and non-rescue, and the rescue one always seems so much more grateful. Which it's hard.
Is that what you found?
Well, I haven't got a lot of experience. I suppose I had one rescue dog, and then Harvey and Hugo, and I don't know. The rescue dog always seemed so much more loving and grateful. Not that Harvey and Hugo weren't, but I don't know. There's just something. Maybe it's just all again in my head, me thinking that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
See, I've had both as well, but at different times, and it's difficult. I wouldn't be able to sort of draw that distinction myself.
Right.
But I suppose everybody's different, aren't they?
Yeah, and every dog's different as well.
Yeah, every dog's different. Yeah.
So
But I've heard that story before. A few people have said that they only get rescues because of that reason. That they just feel as though there's a better bond develops.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's maybe just my two dogs that
aren't grateful. What type of dogs
well,
have you got?
they're both. Well, one's a Saluki Whippet, and one is a.
Yes.
Well, Salukis, we all know what they're like. They're quite aloof dog.
Yeah.
And then the other one, I don't know what she is really. she's a very. She's.
Is this a new one, or have you?
No, I've had them both for a long time. They're both about the same age, about 12 now.
Oh yeah.
And she's a bit of wolfhound, and Whippet or greyhound in there. It's.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah,
though.
but yeah, mad as a hatter.
Yeah. Do you think dogs have that kind of sixth sense?
Yeah.
I really think so.
I do, yeah. I do think they have.
Yeah.
They have. And I don't know whether it comes off the senses with dogs. I mean, when you think about what they can do.
Oh, and the power of their smell as well. Like, just sniffing out chemical changes in the body.
Exactly.
Or we think that's how they figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're so much more intelligent than we are, I think.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I was looking at that. I was looking at it recently and thinking all the things that they can do. You know, all the things that they can sniff out bombs, drugs, cancers,
epilepsy, and brain signals.
Yeah. They can help people that are without sight or sight impaired.
Yeah.
You know, it's just they can do everything. They're just so under. I mean, I don't think they are in this country, but in some countries they're just so undervalued. It's. Yeah.
We had a dog, this was a rescue dog called Kim. She wouldn't walk on the same side of this particular graveyard, but actually it was an old graveyard, so we didn't realise at the time, it was just overgrown. She just would pull to the other side of the road each time, and then we thought we'd figure out why she was. And
that's what it was. Yeah. So that's definitely shows that there is a sixth sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, unless she could just smell the dead bodies.
Unless they were fresh.
Yeah, I didn't think of that before. But
not if they were grown over, though, surely.
Yeah, I suppose you never know. The bones. The dogs like bones. Anyway, yes, the dogs are very useful to society. Do you prefer dogs or the general public?
Oh, God. The problem is, if I say dogs, everyone's going to hate me.
I know.
I think the general public, if they're nice people, I think that's an easy
they like
answer.
dogs.
Yeah, if they've got the traits of a dog, I like them. But there's so many people that are out there that are just not very nice, unfortunately. So I prefer dogs in those cases.
I know. I just love how dogs can pick you up no matter what mood you're in.
Absolutely.
Even if I just were driving and I see a dog walking past, I'm like, it's okay.
Well, it releases. Is it serotonin? And something else.
Dopamine.
That's it. Dopamine. And it releases that, so it also makes you feel better, even if you're feeling low. It's scientifically proven.
Yeah, they are incredible animals. Yeah. So we've got our regular questions where we ask on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being worst, 10 being best, how you rate yourself. The first thing is, how good looking are you?
How good? I think I stopped paying any attention to that about 10 years ago, to be honest. How good looking am I?
When you gave up social media.
7 on social media, a 10.
Yeah, aren't we all?
7, I'll say
the filters.
7. Yeah.
Brilliant. How funny are you?
How funny am I? 8.
Great. How good at cooking are you?
Oh my God, not very. 2.
I'm probably a 1.
Maybe 2 to 3.
Yeah, on a good day.
Yeah, I can do spag bol. Can't everyone who can't cook.
I probably can't.
Yeah.
Singing?
Oh, dear me, I think I'm a 10. I think probably about singing 6.
Okay, anyone that's above 7, they have to sing.
Yeah, well, phew.
Drinking alcohol?
Oh, in terms of...
Like how
I can handle it? Or...
Yeah, how can you handle it?
Oh, I can handle it quite well, but I don't drink that much. But I can handle it quite well, so I'd probably say 9.
No,
Yeah.
I'm a lightweight.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say parenting, but you don't have any children.
No,
Parenting dogs.
Parenting dogs. Oh, I'd say pretty good. 9.
Excellent. A friend?
Ooh, friend. That's a good question. How good a friend am I? 8. Not bad. Could be better.
Yeah, can we all?
Yeah.
How intelligent are you?
7.5.
All right. Kindness?
Kindness. I'd like to think I'm quite a kind person. I'd say 8.5.
Great. And I hate asking this question, but how good at sex are you?
I'd say 9.5 because we can't all be perfect.
Well, true, yes. Again, always room for improvement.
Always room for improvement.
Brilliant. Oh, thanks, Michael. You've been amazing.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, it's Ryan from Harvey Hugo and I am the videographer here. So, are you looking for a new way to stand out in today's crowded digital landscape? Well, look no further than podcasting. Here at Harvey Hugo, we specialise in creating and producing high quality podcasts that engage and inspire audiences. And with our comprehensive production services, we'll take care of all the technical details, from the recording and the editing to the distribution and the promotion. With millions of listeners tuning in every day, it's the perfect time to start connecting with them on a deeper level. Let Harvey and Hugo help you unlock the power of podcasting and take your message to the next level.